Hey everybody, welcome back to our early look at Iowa State's 2012 opponents here at CycloneFanatic.com. Today the Western Illinois Leathernecks, the daunting FCS program from last year. Austen, 2-9 on the season. They returned.
Lost their last 6.
Wow, that's some research. They returned 13 starters. Notably were waxed by Missouri. I think it was like 77-0.
It was bad.
Something like that last year in Columbia. Iowa State's Week 3 opponent. And we were talking, before we turned the camera on, that'd be a really good Week 1 opponent, would it not? I mean, how much would you like to trade that in the Tulsa game right now if you're Paul Rhodes?
Exactly. And we said this in the Tulsa preview, that Tulsa scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
And so I would like to have Western Illinois be this first game just because you get kind of a lesser team, obviously, and a more favorable opponent in game 1 to gear you up to a Tulsa maybe or Iowa per se.
Beyond the Bets, it's a blog. They analyze Vegas odds. They came out with their early predictions on what odds will be for every game in the Division I season. I found it surprising the other day. They had Tulsa. Iowa State is a 2-point favorite over Tulsa. You get 4.5 for Jack Trice Stadium. So they think Tulsa is a 2.5-point favorite on a neutral field over Iowa State. And to compare, you've got Western Illinois. Iowa State's a 29-point favorite according to them. So this is a game where, I mean, at the very least, you get some confidence if you're Iowa State heading into Texas Tech in the next game in the opening of the Big 12 season. But I guess my question for you, Austen, is, I mean, you've played in games like this before, the North Dakota States of the world, where it was your opener. I mean, as a player, is there a difference? Because I know you guys, listen, you guys will all come up and say, oh, we're going to treat every game the same. We're going to treat every team like it's Texas or Oklahoma. I guess I've heard enough of you guys say that over the years. I don't really buy it 100% because you do see the Kansas game for the last couple of seasons. You do see a letdown there.
Yeah.
Now, you guys have come back and you've won those football games, but I guess in my mind, I have a hard time believing that you take Western Illinois, you get as jacked up for that game in Week 3 as you do Iowa in Week 2, or even Tulsa in the season opener. I mean, how do you avoid a letdown in a game like that?
There's no doubt that, this is as a player, as being a former player, you like to think of them that it is equally important, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not.
No.
The only thing you can really do is prepare as if it were a Texas or a Texas Tech who you'll be playing the next game, is that you're going to, sharpen up these things for that Texas Tech game, almost like it's a scrimmage, but, with more of an emphasis on, okay, we better take care of business or else we're going to be embarrassed.
Yeah, if you lose that game, that's what people remember about your season, regardless of what you do.
Exactly. It reminds me of like the 2 versus 15 Iowa State Hampton NCAA tournament type of deal where they have no business, competing. But then with those FCS teams, you play with fire, you let them stick around. You never know what can happen.
You get a little confidence, and this is
North Dakota State beating Minnesota a couple years back.
Yeah, and Kansas went down, I believe.
Minnesota lost to South Dakota State 2 years ago and North Dakota State last year.
Yeah, and those are pretty good programs.
Yeah, they are.
That's like in northern Iowa caliber, where this team.
True. I'm just saying with that. No, I agree. They're not, but I just agree that I believe that any FCS team, if you let them stick around, those guys have major chips on their shoulders, especially these kids from Western Illinois, because they're familiar with Iowa State. They've seen Iowa and Iowa State, in the grand scheme of things, big program, UNI. They think that they have a shot just because, UNI has beat Iowa State in the past. It's kind of a chip on the shoulder mentality where they think that, if they hang around, they can win it.
And it all comes back to it is for these FCS schools going into a Big 12 stadium like that.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on what else is on their schedule, a lot of guys, it's the biggest game of the year. I mean, it's the one that they circle on the schedule when it comes out because it's their opportunity to really shine. The game will probably be, I don't know if it'll be on television or if not, it'll be on Cyclones.tv. But you know what I mean? It's just a bigger stage for these guys. Yeah,
and it's their Super Bowl. I looked at their schedule, and this will be the biggest.
The big one for them. Okay.
On their schedule. So it's scary in the fact that if Iowa State doesn't handle business, it could be bad. But this is, like you said, 29 points is a lot of points. I say Iowa State wins by more than that.
Well, we'll see. Just a little bit. We're not going to go position by position with Western Illinois. There's really no point. But we'll say quarterback competition going on. So you have that in common. Couple of pretty decent running backs for Western Illinois, but they really struggled on the defensive side of the football a year ago.
One bright side to bring to their defensive side is they have a guy who's for the preseason watch list. His name is Kieran James. defensive back, senior. I think one of those things that if you look around the FCS, there's not a lot of senior DBs that are getting a lot of notoriety, and this guy's notable returner. Had a few interceptions last year, and he's a decent player.
Well, I think we can agree this should be a win for Iowa State. Should be a win. If you lose this one, it's going to be a really long fall, and we're going to be counting down the days to basketball. But I don't think we're going to need to go that route.
I don't think so either.
Next week, we're going to talk Texas Tech, a team who Iowa State really had their number the last couple of years. The 52-38 game 2 years ago, and then, of course, last year, which I thought was one of the most surprising games of the entire season. Yeah, not that they went down there and beat them necessarily, but the 41-7, that game was never even close. So does Paul Rhodes have Tommy Tuberville's number, or is it just a coincidence? We'll talk about that next week. Thanks for watching here at CycloneFanatic.com.